Welcome to Smash Fiction, the podcast where we usually pit two or more fictional characters against one another, but occasionally pit one fictional character against a fictional setting, like twice a year maybe, in a battle of strength or wits, or looking into the abyss through iconic eye panels while the abyss giggles, applies clown makeup, and looks also into you, and see who would win. This week, Spider-Man vs. Arkham Asylum. Parker! Parker! The voice bellowed across the offices of the Daily Bugle. Each of the newspaper's employees froze to the spot for an instant, just long enough to determine that J. Jonah Jameson wasn't indiscriminately yelling their name. Somebody else this time, thank goodness, they thought to themselves, resuming their duties automatically as though there had been no interruption. Or possibly, at least it's just the photographer. Peter Parker entered his publisher's office with practiced nonchalance, having long since grown accustomed to being summoned in this fashion by the temperamental man currently lurking somewhere within the room's customary cloud of cigar smoke. "What is it, Jonah?" he asked. "I was just about to collect my check." "Never mind that," Jameson growled. "You're on the next flight to Gotham City." "Gotham City?" Peter exclaimed. "Now?" "Of course now!" Jameson yelled. "Those Gotham idiots apparently had a fire breakout at one of their major prisons, and what do? They transfer the inmates to that ridiculous asylum of theirs, which is already overflowing with psychos and malcontents. Blatant mismanagement. You see, Parker? This is what comes of letting costumed vigilantes run wild without any pushback from the civic justice system. It's a disgrace. I'm sending the new guy, Kiefer, to cover the story, and you're gonna photog for him." "Look, Jonah, be reasonable," Peter pleaded. "I just gave you all those new Spider-Man pictures. I'm walking out the door with my paycheck. I have plans with MJ this weekend. Gotham City isn't exactly part of our local coverage. We didn't even know it existed until—" "Parker," Jonah broke in, "I am aware that recent revelations about the nature of the multiverse, combined with the development of technology that allows us to traverse it, have opened up vast new spectrums of possibility for humankind. But let me assure you that no matter how many different universes actually exist, there is no universe in which I care about your weekend plans. What I care about is the fact that Gotham City seems to be primarily populated by unrepentant, deviant weirdos in colorful tights. And for some reason, people like that tend to stop right in front of your face long enough for you to snap a painfully mediocre picture. And of course Gotham is relevant to our readers' interests. Everything is relevant to their interests. Didn't you know we live in a society, Parker? Think about that on your flight, because you're going or you're fired. Choose and get out of here." Peter cursed to himself as he left the office. Breaking the news to Mary Jane was not going to be a fun conversation. Ordinarily, he might suggest she just come on this impromptu vacation with him, but, it was Gotham. Peter didn't know much about the place, but what he'd heard was bad, and he'd been doing this long enough to know that what he hadn't heard was probably worse. Jonah wasn't wrong about GCPD turning a blind eye to that Batman character, but from what little Peter had read, the Batman was the main reason Gotham was even slightly inhabitable. And of course, things had gotten worse with Batman off-planet fighting against some sort of existential threat to everything. Peter had forgotten which one exactly, though he did remember being somewhat offended that he hadn't been invited. Well, there wasn't anything he could do about it. Spider-Man turning up in Gotham City the same weekend Peter Parker incidentally happened to be there would be too coincidental even for Jonah. He would have to hope he could get some good shots of Gotham's insane criminal underworld because he wouldn't be getting any shots of himself. This was one case that Spider-Man would be sitting out. 23 hours later, Parker and his reporter, Jesse Kiefer, were being walked through the main gates of Arkham Asylum by Warden Quincy Sharp, who was doing his best to drown Kiefer in a torrent of slick political bullshit. Sharp wanted to be mayor of Gotham, Peter knew, and was rapidly switching between praise of his own accomplishments as warden and condemnation of the incumbent administration, defending the competence of Gotham's public servants while blaming the fire and everything that had happened since on the current mayor. Kiefer, to his credit, wasn't thrown off his game. Peter thought he remembered something about Kiefer having spent some time as a reporter in Gotham before coming to the Bugle. That would explain why Jonah picked him for this. As if to confirm as much, Kiefer exchanged informal pleasantries with every member of the Arkham staff they passed, as if they were old friends. "So who do you have in here right now?" Kiefer asked Sharp. "Of the big ones, I mean. I know the Joker was recently apprehended again." "Yes, he's actually being processed right now," Sharp replied. "And we have Harley Quinn as well, been making excellent progress with her. Bane is here, we're really just trying to help him as best we can. Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, Scarecrow, all these new imports from Blackgate, of course, mostly ex-Joker henchmen. Oh, and Duma Sigwagwe is here, Jesse. You might remember that lunatic. Though, that hardly counts as one of the big ones." Oh god, no, Kiefer said. The others are impressive, though. Hey, Quince, is there any way, Pete and I can go a little bit deeper? Get a look at some of these characters? I know Pete was really hoping to get some good picks. He winked in Peter's direction. Sharp hesitated. Well, I don't know, he said. You know there are some awfully dangerous people we have here, Jesse. I'm sure they're properly secured. Quince, we're old buds. Do me a favor here. After all, I've been diligently doing you the favor of not telling any of my media contacts about that night in Cabo last year. You are still running for mayor, right? Sharp sighed. Fine, go in, but don't take too long. Kiefer strolled confidently into the deepest levels of Arkham Asylum, with Peter somewhat warily in tow. Which is about the time the Joker decided to kill the people processing him. Harley Quinn took over Arkham security systems, all those ex-Joker henchmen revealed themselves to also be current Joker henchmen, and the inmates literally took over the asylum. Cell doors were opening all over Arkham, and chaos ripped through the institution like a fast-acting plague. Kiefer was gone. Peter had no idea where. It was all he could do to escape the screaming, crushing riot of humanity and stumble into a reasonably secluded, empty room. Despite his despondent thoughts back in New York, Peter was, of course, wearing his costume underneath his street clothes, and it's a good thing too, because it looks like Spider-Man isn't sitting this one out after all. He's trapped inside Arkham Asylum with several prominent members of Batman's notorious rogues gallery, and neither the Caped Crusader nor anyone else is coming to the rescue anytime soon. Can Spidey restore order to Arkham by subduing the Joker, Harley Quinn, Bane, Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, and Scarecrow, not to mention a small army of criminals? Or will he become a permanent resident of Gotham City's legendary madhouse for the remainder of his very short life? I don't know, I don't play video games, and my portrayal of Spider-Man was probably about at least 10 years out of date right there, so I'm not really qualified to make these kind of decisions. Fortunately, not being qualified seems to be the one prerequisite for being a judge in this country these days, so...
Too real.
Sorry. So I, Miles Schneiderman, have breezed through my confirmation hearing, and am ready to make a crucial ruling affecting everyone's future. America, baby, let's do this! Representing Arkham Asylum are Claire Mulcairn.
Arkham? I hardly know him.
Oh.
Asylum? I hardly know, Spider-Man? I hardly know her, man.
And Megan Bob.
Team Spider-Man is a menace.
Representing Spider-Man are Dan Mulcairn.
All right, let's do this one last time. My name is Dan Mulcairn. I was bitten by a radioactive list, and for 4 years, I've been the one and only Spider-Dan. I'm pretty sure you know the rest. I did a bunch of research, ran a game, did some yelling, and then I did some yelling again, and again, and again, and again. And I did once pretend to be Neil Gaiman. We don't really talk about that. Look, I'm a hashtag, I'm an influencer, I did an Arbor Day album, I have an excellent theme song, thanks Kevin MacLeod, and a so-so win record. But after everything, I still love being Spider-Dan. I mean, who wouldn't? So, no matter how many losses I take, I always find a way to come back, because the only thing standing between this podcast and oblivion is me. Oh, and I guess like 5 other people, but there's only one Spider-Dan, and you're listening to him.
And our special guest for this week, from Pulp Diction Press, it's author and podcaster Joshua Unruh.
He has trained and planned and waited for 18 years. He thinks he's ready. It's Bat Josh, year 1.
In order to determine who goes first this week, I tried to drive both teams insane to see which of our advocates could best hold up against personalized mental torture. First, I forced Joshua to start a new weekly podcast where he was only allowed to discuss things he liked about the first Thor movie.
Oh, shit.
And I made Dan edit every episode of that podcast using a mouse whose only working button was the right click.
Oh boy.
Then I sat Bob down for a nice game of Monster Prom, only I made Claire manipulate the game behind the scenes so that every time Bob came close to pairing up 2 characters, an out-of-nowhere cliched miscommunication would break them up again, leaving Claire with narrative blue balls and Bob with actual blue balls.
Oh no!
Joshua and Dan escaped their predicament by using thoughts of their loved ones who counted on them to lift an entire train station and used it to smash their podcasting equipment. So that was pretty cool. But Claire and Bob managed to stop playing manipulative Monster Prom long enough to explain to me that there was no point trying to drive anyone crazy, since in the world of late-stage capitalism, we start getting traumatized almost from the moment we're born, and actually everybody living in this unsustainable continual growth paradigm is already crazy anyway, and by the time they were finished, I was riding the high of a really solid existential crisis, so good job turning that one around on me, guys.
You're welcome.
As a result, Team Arkham will be going first, followed by Team Spider-Man. Team Arkham! All around me are familiar faces, mental cases. Mental cases. Now this new hero thinks that he's a fighter. Kill that spider. Kill that spider.
That was really good, Miles.
Thank
That
you.
was excellent.
Tall. Dark.
Really? What? We're doing this about Arkham
Imposing.
Asylum?
Do you know me, Miles? And blessed with a decor scheme that gives Tim Burton a raging boner. Arkham Asylum has the creaky cast iron gates of a childhood nightmare. It possesses the feeble, rickety towers of a crumbling Victorian mansion and the insufficient lighting of a parking lot in a rural area. Don't even get me started on the flying buttresses. Arkham Asylum is the place where grimness goes to grow up and turn into full-blown nightmare fuel.
In order to take back the asylum, Spider-Man's going to have to pull off a boss rush that makes Cuphead look like Super Mario Bros. First up is the Joker. To Spider-Man, he'll seem like a low-rent, street-level villain. No powers, clown gimmick. You can bet that Spidey's gonna underestimate him. What Pete doesn't realize is that this version of the Joker is a criminal mastermind who is as brilliant as Kaiser Soze, Lex Luthor, John Doe, and Frank Underwood combined, and as evil as real-life Kevin Spacey. As an example of the sorts of plans that this guy comes up with when he wants to get his hands on some Titan, which is an even more powerful strain of the already super powerful Venom, which is, the drug, not the symbiote. Well, Miles actually already covered that in his opening. The whole transferring prisoners, all that stuff. Yeah, Spider-Man's fought a few master planners in his day, but Doc Ock's got nothing on the Joker's unique concoction of brilliance, unpredictability, and ruthlessness. The only reason that the Joker loses in the original game is because of his fatal flaw. He just loves tormenting Batman so damn much. He makes it clear at multiple points that he could kill Batman if he chose, like the time when he takes control of an elevator shaft that Batman is in and threatens to drop it. But he doesn't, because he and Batman have an understanding. But with everyone else, do not let the fact that this Joker is being played by Mark Hamill lead you astray. This game came out in 2009, 1 year after The Dark Knight, so this is as dark as the Joker has ever been. He will not hesitate to snuff out some goof in blue and red pajamas. Also, at the end of the game, he injects himself with Titan and grows to like 15 feet tall and covered in bone spikes, so there's that. Sure, a cure for Titan can be synthesized out of spores that grow in the caves beneath Arkham, but even if Petey figures that out and decides to venture down there, he's going to run into a 12-foot-tall crocodile monster that moves lightning fast and has a taste for human flesh by the name of Killer Croc. Pro tip, when you fight Killer Croc, you actually can't defeat him. Whenever he attacks, all you can do is run away. He's less of a villain to be fought and more of a force of nature to be avoided at all costs. And speaking of forces of nature, there's Poison Ivy. The version of Poison Ivy in this game is hella powerful, a full-on plant elemental with the ability to summon super strong vine tentacles from the ground and to mind control people with her spores. And then the Joker injects her with Titan, and she gets even stronger. When you enter the building that she's been housed in, it's completely overgrown with carnivorous plants, populated by mind-controlled guards, and the air is full of poisonous spores. And even though Poison Ivy is normally somewhat of a morally gray character, once she's full of Titan, she is in no mood to foyer with anyone. Tonight, she's more feeling making herself a giant plant mech suit, commanding an army of mind-controlled cops and Arkham guards, and bringing the Earth itself to life to devour her victims. That is, if Spidey doesn't just happen to walk through a cloud of mind-controlling gas first, in which case that pretty much ends the match.
Speaking of gas, we need to talk about Scarecrow and his fear gas. The fear gas makes you see horrific, soul-destroying things that aren't there, and it works off of your deepest traumas. Batman sees his parents in wriggling body bags, their ravaged corpses, telling him that he failed them. Do you think that Spider-Man won't see Gwen Stacy's body? Or Uncle Ben's? And what's more, this messes up Batman, who is familiar with fear gas and knows it's coming if Scarecrow is around. Peter has never fought Scarecrow before and has no reason to prepare for that kind of psychological attack. I think we can all agree that Spider-Man could benefit from some therapy. The kid has been through a lot. This is going to mess with him in a way that plays on all of his failures and all of his losses. It takes Batman to the night his parents were murdered. It shows him the asylum shattering to pieces around him as he's menaced by an enormous scarecrow with syringes for fingers. I don't know what it's going to show Peter Parker, and neither does Scarecrow, but he doesn't have to know, because all Scarecrow needs to do is expose Spider-Man to the fear gas and watch as the least peer-reviewed method of regression therapy imaginable does its work. This place is also infested with goons from the Blackgate prison. Sure, they're just goons, but that's like saying, aw, it's just a paper cut. Yeah, one paper cut is annoying, but after enough of them, you'd sort of rather have been kicked to death by a herd of goats than deal with one more fucking paper cut. I don't have an exact count on the number of goons around because they don't really stand still to be counted. But at one point, the Joker uses the word hundreds. Important to note, these goons have guns and knives, which is going to hurt a hell of a lot more than being nicked by a piece of paper. I grant you, Spidey doesn't have to worry about goons 1 through 10. But once he's on goon 43, I think he's going to be feeling differently about this death by paper cuts night he is enduring.
Probably the biggest disadvantage that Spider-Man is going to have to deal with here is the fact that he's fighting all of these villains for the first time. You see, Spider-Man is a thinker, he's a planner, but he's not quick thinking when it comes to tactics. He's very quick-witted when it comes to jokes, but maybe he should try using some more of that brain power on watching his surroundings, because he has a really bad track record when it comes to fighting a new enemy for the first time. Standard formula, Spidey gets beat up, he has to run away, and then he has to spend a few days healing from his injuries and tinkering in his lab to make some new silver bullet gizmo that he can use to have the edge in the rematch. He'll usually win that rematch, but in this scenario, which takes place over the course of one night, he just does not have time for inventing new gadgets or healing up after some villain kicks his ass. In Amazing Spider-Man 31, Spidey starts fighting 4 generic henchmen in faceless masks using sleeping gas guns, and at the start of the fight, he boasts that it won't be a problem because he's so good at holding his breath, but then he fights them for 3 whole pages, and he can't beat them before his breath runs out, so he has to run away so he doesn't pass out. And these were 1963 pages. That's a long time to fail to beat up 4 normal human goons. With inflation, that'd be like a whole trade paperback today. Spider-Man does defeat these goons in the next issue after creating a gas mask. However, the fact that he still regularly succumbs to gas attacks in later issues, such as in Spectacular Spider-Man 211, means that he isn't carrying all of the gadgets he's crafted over the years to solve particular problems. Unlike Batman, Spider-Man travels light, typically only with extra webbing, spider tracers, and a flashlight in his utility belt. Even when he theoretically should know better, fighting people whose powers he is very familiar with, he will often charge into a scenario overconfidently and take a beating, like when he fights some Hydra operatives who have been given the powers of the Avengers in Amazing Spider-Man 523. Spidey says to himself, for all their enhancements, these guys are just carbon copies of the real Avengers. They're not the real deal. I am. Then Evil Thor throws his hammer at Spider-Man. Spidey dodges it and starts quipping, but then he gets hit in the back when Evil Thor calls the hammer back to his hand, something that he has seen Thor do dozens, if not hundreds of times before throughout his many decades of superheroism.
Spider-Man's only hope for surviving this evening in hell would be if he could get one of those good bursts of extra superhuman strength and endurance that he pulls off every couple hundred issues. However, he only ever gets the ability to tap into this extra reserve of strength when a family member is threatened, typically Aunt May, such as in Amazing Spider-Man 33 or 694. When only Spider-Man's life is on the line, he's very much capable of being defeated, such as the time in Web of Spider-Man 31 when Kraven the Hunter tosses a net on Spider-Man, shoots him, kills him, and buries him. Despite hailing from a time when the word teenager was still written as teen-ager, as though ager was a word or something, Spider-Man is ultimately a spider-millennial. He would do anything to help a friend or loved one, but does not think he deserves to buy a new toothbrush now and then. Come on, Spidey. You are worthy of dental hygiene. Buy the nice floss next time. Treat yourself. Also, even if he does manage to tap into that mama bear strength or spider nephew strength, one downside of whenever Spider-Man does this is that his judgment and common sense go completely out the window. After an airplane that Aunt May is riding in loses power and starts to crash, Peter gets a ride from a nearby Captain Marvel up to the airplane to try and save it. He starts by breaking a hole in the plane, which causes it to depressurize. Then, after he seals the hole with webbing, he realizes he made a fatal mistake. He says, I was so worried about Aunt May falling, I used up all my web sealing a hole I made. So much for web shoots or a web cushion to soften our landing. So all he did was make a mistake, fix his mistake, and at that point, he was just another person on a crashing plane. There's some sort of life lesson in there, probably. I don't know what it is, but it's in there. I feel it.
I'm pretty sure it's don't spell teenager with hyphens.
There we go. He manages to get the pilot to turn off all the controls and then turn them back on, and that works. But at that point, the supposedly spectacular Spider-Man was really just about as super as a Microsoft technical support hotline at the very cutting edge of 1991. Which was 28 years ago, guys.
Thank you. Well, if I were on Team Spider-Man, I'd certainly have found those arguments maddening. Team Spider-Man, as I know from personal experience, with great opening arguments comes literally no guarantee of victory, but give them to me anyway.
All right. I think that we can all agree when it comes to the skills necessary for Spider-Man to survive the gauntlet that is Arkham Asylum, he's got the goods. Batman is definitely a master of stealth, but Spider-Man can, when he wants to, use his powers to find the smallest of spaces, the tiniest of shadows, and then cram himself into them. Batman is a master of the martial arts, but the unique combination of spider strength, spider agility, web shooter, spider sense, and the training that he received from Shang-Chi, master of Kung Fu, all combine to make Spidey a formidable hand-to-hand combatant on a par with at least the bottom half of the top 10 martial artists in the DCU. With that in mind, I think we can all collectively agree that no number of thugs will do more than scuff Spidey's knuckles. No squeeze into a ventilator shaft is too tight for the webhead, and that a group of criminals terrified of a man in Dracula drag will be equally terrified of a spider-themed wise-ass capable of descending upon them from above. So you can all miss me with that Spidey can't handle the Blackgate prisoner shit. Which only leaves the supervillains. This is actually good news for Spidey, because I can say, as a lifetime superhero fan and a person who has spent way too much scholarly time in the last decade or two on this subject, I can definitively say that almost every superhero's rogues gallery sucks. Like, usually a lot. But there are a few notable exceptions, and two of them we're talking about today. I don't think there's that many people who would argue against Batman having the greatest set of rogues in superhero comics. And I think it's equally uncontroversial to say that Spider-Man has the second greatest set, although I could probably convince to give it a tie with Flash. My point being that even though Spider-Man is most assuredly at a disadvantage, having never fought Batman's rogues gallery specifically, it's not nearly as much of a disadvantage as one might think at first blush. You see, for every Batman rogue, Spider-Man has a similar villain of his own. If he can survive the fight for a handful of seconds, enough time to connect these villainous dots to his own, then he will also be able to handle these costumed criminals. Let's talk about the Joker, for instance. Spidey has often beaten Carnage, who, I admit, is a pale shadow of the Harlequin of hate's insanity, but Carnage has a bunch of superpowers, and Joker, well, he has a can-do attitude and a joke book you'd read on the can. And when it comes to Joker the Mastermind, do we really think he's got more going on in that department than Norman Osborn the Green Goblin? I certainly don't. And the unexpected benefit to Spidey is that once Batman is out of the picture, Joker is going to get bored. He will be less and less invested in the outcome the longer it's a man dressed as a spider rather than a man dressed as a bat.
And keep in mind that in this particular setup, Joker is relying heavily upon being in control of many systems in Arkham Asylum. Spidey has had plenty of experience going up against villains who control the surrounding area in some way, everyone from Kraven the Hunter and Dr. Octopus to Mother effing Arcade. Hell, there's a storyline where Sandman traps Spidey in a giant sandcastle that Sandman can reshape at will, and Spidey not only gets out of it himself, but also manages to rescue Sandman's hostage along the way. Joker being able to play with security cameras and door locks is some remedial stuff for Webhead.
Moving on to Harley Quinn, Spidey has often had to fight against his on-again, off-again lover, the Black Cat, who has a similar fighting style to Harley. And certainly Harley's more madcap antics are different than the Black Cat, but if you're used to fighting a female gymnast with bad luck powers, how much is a giant hammer gonna throw you off?
Yeah, Harley might as well not even be in this match. In Amazing Spider-Man number 185, Spidey takes on the White Dragon, a superpowered martial arts master. Not only does Spidey easily dodge or block every blow that the dragon throws at him, at one point, Dragon nearly breaks his damn hand when Spider-Man catches one of his punches. When you stack supervillain reflexes and decades of combat experience on top of clairvoyance, Harley is going to find herself, well, clowned on. Don't sigh at me.
Sorry.
It's the only reasonable response, but it had to be said.
I mean, that's fair, but there's a lot of glass houses around here. So
Sure.
I am throwing no scoffs in this.
Now, the Scarecrow. That is a legitimate curveball. for a minute or two, Spidey has met and trounced Mysterio dozens of times. Illusions are not the same as hallucinations of your greatest fears, but I think the spider sense's ability to discern what is a product of the mind and what's real will put Spidey right back in the mix.
And that's even presuming that Spidey ends up under the influence of the fear gas in the first place. In Arkham Asylum, Scarecrow tends to ambush Batman with fear gas, a tactic that will be much less useful once he starts targeting the guy with spider sense, who can hold his breath for up to 8 minutes straight.
Or 1963 pages.
That's correct. Add on the fact that Spidey is naturally resistant to all types of toxins, plus the fact that years of going up against Mysterio have made Spidey reflexively suspicious of surreal situations, and Peter might not even notice Scarecrow in this match.
Now we move on to Bane. Listen, hitting dudes much bigger and stronger than himself is Spider-Man's bread and butter. And in the case of Bane, Spidey's really only fighting someone who's just bigger. Which leads us to Killer Croc. All the same things as Bane, except remember how often Spidey has squared off against vermin. Killer Croc is gross and scary and lives in the sewer, just like the gross, scary rat man that lives in the sewer that Spider-Man's beaten a bunch.
Yeah, and here's the thing about the strong villains like Bane and Killer Croc. Neither of them hold even the tiniest candle to Spider-Man. Spidey's strength is such that he's able to casually use anything from a 3-ton wrecking ball to a loaded semi-truck as a weapon. In Amazing number 539, he takes out a sniper on a rooftop across the street by throwing a Jeep at him. In issue 629, Absorbing Man throws an armored car at Spider-Man, and he just catches it nonchalantly without losing a step in the phone conversation he's having at the same time. He's able to support the weight of everything from a plane coming in for a landing to the collapsing Daily Bugle building. We see in Spider-Man vs. Wolverine that Spidey is constantly having to pull his punches to avoid killing normal human opponents, and that when Dr. Octopus possesses Spidey's body in Amazing number 700, he accidentally punches off Scorpion's jaw, not realizing just how much strength Peter Parker really has. That's the thing. People see the wiry, wisecracking pinball that is Spider-Man and presume that he's a fragile acrobat. But when you can trivially bench press a city bus, chumps like Bane and Croc don't even rate.
All right, Poison Ivy. Now I'm going to be real here. This is the wild card matchup with the least overlap between Spidey's opponent and an existing Spider rogue. The mutated Ivy is more like a combination of Spidey villains. She can fill the environment like Sandman, can attack from multiple directions like Dr. Octopus, is as brilliant as the Jackal, as ruthless as Venom. More than the Joker or even Titan-infused Joker, this is the matchup that should scare our webhead the most. But I have 3 words to explain why he'll come out on top. The Sinister Six.
I'll see your 3 words and raise you 1 word and a hyphenate. The X-Men. In Secret Wars, Spider-Man gets attacked by all of the X-Men at once. Wolverine, Colossus, Storm, Rogue, Cyclops, and Nightcrawler all come at him, and not one of them manages to lay a finger on him. Wolverine even talks about how he made them, quote, look like fools, like amateurs. How many characters can you think of that Wolverine would admit made him look like an amateur? Combine that with the fact that Ivy has maybe the most obvious weakness out of all the villains here. I'll bet I can use my chemistry skills to mix up some weed killer real quick. And the fact that she's the one most likely to do a face turn on Joker, and she basically becomes little more than a bump in Spider-Man's road to victory. I'm not going to claim that Spidey can get through this entire gauntlet of foes with no challenge or setbacks. Being on the back foot is kind of his thing. I mean, one of the most iconic images of the Wallcrawler is from Amazing 33, Spidey pinned beneath a massive amount of metallic rubble. You might look at that image and think that it represents Spider-Man's tendency to get in way over his head, to end up in a situation he's not even remotely qualified to handle. And honestly, you'd be right. But you'd also be missing the other part of what that picture represents. Because if you've read Amazing 33, you know what happens next. Spidey, pinned under a weight far beyond what he's capable of lifting, manages to lift it. He digs down inside himself and finds a strength that neither he nor we as readers knew he was capable of. The Joker and his buddies are used to dealing with Batman, a man who has achieved the mental and physical limitations of the human body. Spider-Man is superhuman, sure, but his real power is breaking through his own limitations. Well, and also breaking Joker's plan wide open. Batman can take tonight off, courtesy of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Team Spider-Man, if I had the time and the technology, I would clone those opening arguments. Dress them up like the 1990s and call them the Scarlet Statements.
Just as long as you give them a properly torn up hoodie, they'll look fantastic.
That's right. But unfortunately, it's time to move on to the next part of our show, which begins with Team Arkham. And they find you kind of funny, they find you kind of sad. Was that paltry bullshit honestly the best stuff that you had? It's time for their responses and they're chomping at the bit. 'Cause when openings are over, it is time for the rebuttals. Buttles.
I'm personally champing at the bit. I don't know about you, Bob, but
Oh, fuck off.
His spidey sense is inconsistent, or sometimes it is overcome by his impulsivity. So I do not think that it's going to save him as much as you think it's going to save him. How was he unable to think that depressurizing a plane was, like, not going to be a great idea?
Well, okay, he wasn't on the plane at the time, so it's not like
it's
that
not dangerous
was
to
Even
me.
more
It just
irresponsible.
irresponsible. Sure, that doesn't apply to his spider sense, and like his spider sense is just kind of like one aspect of his overall ability to keep himself alive. Like, there's a long period in Dan Slott's run on Spider-Man when he just loses his spider sense, and he's still able to dodge gunfire. The man knows how to keep himself alive.
he actually doesn't always notice that it's triggering if he's like distracted or stressed out. The biggest example we have is in that Spider-Man vs. Wolverine comic where he finds Ned Leeds dead in his hotel room. His spider sense is going off because there's a bunch of KGB agents coming up on him, but he doesn't realize it. So I think, for instance, if he got hit by some Scarecrow toxin, which oftentimes in the game, by the way, is just pumped in through the vents, so nobody like jumps up on you, and then he sees, for instance, the dead body of one of his loved ones in front of him, the way that Batman saw a dead Jim Gordon in front of him, he might not realize that what's going on with his spider sense and not realize that it's a hallucination, etc., etc.
Spider-Man has spent so many years going up against Mysterio that he is reflexively suspicious of, like, weird and nonsensical situations that seem to be specifically emotionally manipulative for him. In Amazing 619, Mysterio attempts to manipulate Spider-Man into believing that his old friend George Stacy was actually a criminal mastermind, and Spidey immediately realizes that Mysterio is behind the whole thing. If Mary Jane or Aunt May appears to show up randomly dead in Gotham City, I think he's gonna think twice before he jumps to conclusions.
This is like hallucination stuff, though. This is like dream logic. Obviously, if I suddenly found myself in high school again and not wearing any pants, I'd be like, you know, oh, this is clearly not real if I was like conscious and awake. But if you're dreaming or like, you know, your senses are all messed up from toxins and having a hallucination, you believe that stuff. That's how that stuff works, right?
All Batman has to do in Arkham Asylum in order to overcome the Scarecrow hallucinations is just like fight through it and find a beacon of hope within the hallucination and then use that to beat the giant evil Scarecrow that he sees. If we presume that the spider sense doesn't trigger, his natural resistance to toxins doesn't work, he can't hold his breath past it, if we presume that this thing hits Spider-Man as hard as it hits Batman, all Spider-Man has to do is dig deep inside of him and find a measure of hope that it will help him through. And boy, I wonder if Spider-Man can do that.
Also, it's worth pointing out again that Spider-Man's endurance, his actual physical stamina, is also of superhuman levels, and there's no guarantee that the Scarecrow's gas will even work on him at all.
I did want to bring up, Claire, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't you find out later on that the prisoners are being mind controlled by Poison Ivy?
Those are the guards. And you don't find out later. Okay. Just at a certain point in the game, you end up fighting a lot of Arkham guards who have been mind controlled by Poison Ivy. So that's just a difficult moral situation to navigate.
Yeah, I was wondering about some of those things for Spider-Man. About, you know, he's a moral young man. He has a good head on his shoulders. I don't think he's going to feel okay about this.
Oh, hold on. Spider-Man will punch a cop. Like, Batman's got friends on the force. He may or may not punch a cop, but Spider-Man will straight punch a cop. This is a guy who's been running around town in his long underwear being declared a threat or a menace by everybody with a uniform and a gun since he was 15. If the cop comes at Spidey, he might be nice about it. There might be webs more than punching, but Spidey will punch a cop.
All right, Spider-Man's fight with the X-Men in Secret Wars, all he does is like dodge them for, you know, one 80s page page worth of comics and then runs away. Wolverine's like, he made us look like chumps because they couldn't catch him. But like, yeah, Spider-Man's good at running away from stuff. He's like not always good at like beating people though. I don't think you could beat all the X-Men in a fight. And like, that's more of what, he can't just run away all night.
Running away all night is 65-70% of the Arkham gameplay. I think Spider-Man's the perfect guy for this job.
Yeah, I mean, Arkham Asylum is a game where you have to, like, really pick and choose when you attack people. You know, you gotta, like, watch them from the shadows and, like, wait for one of them to be by themselves so you can, like, swoop in and web them up. I mean, use your grappling gun to bring them up to the ceiling. So, yeah. And keep in mind, the X-Men that were pursuing them, one was throwing lightning bolts and one could teleport, and he still wasn't caught by any of them.
I mean, he's also familiar with them. It's not like these were strangers. These are people who he hangs out with. He probably goes to the same parties, guys.
Oh, I'm sorry. Spider-Man doesn't get invited to parties.
Check and mate.
That's so sad.
There's no way in hell that Poison Ivy is going to face turn in this because, as we said, she gets injected with Titan. He's going to have to at least beat her in combat before that happens. Poison Ivy, once injected with Titan, is beyond reasoning with. She just wants to destroy everything.
I mean, she gets, like, emotional and stuff. You know, she loses a lot of her rationality. Spider-Man's one of those characters who is also very good at, like, figuring out what it is that a person wants and could tell her, like, hey, you realize that this stuff that the Joker's been pumping into your plants is actually poisonous and is killing them, right? How does that make you feel? You maybe want to go fight him for a bit? Whether or not she goes along with it, she's definitely going to be, like, momentarily distracted, and then it's just like a Stinger web missile to the head or a quick jump with a drop kick directly to her face, and then Poison Ivy's out.
Oh, cloud of spores. Now he's mind controlled.
All right. You know what? This is your fault, Team Spider-Man. All your fault. If only you had stopped them when you could have. But you didn't, and now your chances of winning are dead. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff you'll be saying to yourselves if you don't nail these rebuttals, so go for it.
Great. Claire, you kind of brought up Poison Ivy's mind-controlling spores, and one thing that Spidey has been seen doing is using his webbing to create either like a makeshift oxygen sac so that he can go scuba diving, or covering his face with it so that it creates an air filter, both of which could help in taking care of any airborne toxins. Maybe not the fear gas, I'll grant you that, but certainly the spores.
I mean, if you're arguing that the size and the spaces between the webbing are correct size to let oxygen through, but not Poison Ivy's mind control spores, which you apparently know the size of, relative to oxygen molecules and the gaps in Spider-Man's webbing, then that's fine.
Listen, I don't. I'm sure Peter Parker can figure it out.
I'm reasonably sure that oxygen is smaller than spores.
Regarding your point, Bob, that Spidey really only digs deep when one of his loved ones is being threatened, I will point out that the Joker has a lot of innocent hostages in Arkham as part of this setup, and Spidey has been known to dig deep and risk his life to ridiculous extents in order to save innocent people that he does not know. If he was just assaulting their supervillain base, maybe I could see him not quite reaching that level. He's absolutely going to be at 100% when he realizes that the Joker has innocent victims.
He's gonna try, but he's not gonna get that spider nephew strength.
Probably there's going to be a couple of innocents that die first before he's able to get more than the 10%.
I don't like this.
But no, I don't like it
That's
either.
fair.
It's facts. There's a lot of bodies dropping in Arkham tonight. Some of them die on Batman's watch. It's very sad. But the point of this, and this also maybe factors into Scarecrow a little bit, is that we're talking about a man who spends a lot of time with his guilt. You know,
Yep.
Like Batman spends time with his guilt, but it's like one of those purse dogs. You know, he's just carrying it along with him. Spider-Man's got like Clifford the Big Red guilt hangover.
Yeah.
And
Spider-Man, like, plays catch with his guilt and throws
Yeah.
sticks.
It keeps coming back. Ah!
if he saw a hallucination of a dead loved one, he would be like, ah, damn, there's another one. And the first time he saw one of these, you know, good cops of Arkham, one of these good guards of Arkham drop, that would be it. The Clifford the Big Red guilt hangover would be off to the races. It'd be no problem for him to dig deep into his heroism reserves.
I'm just so delighted by the fact that you're arguing that Spider-Man just sees the ghosts of his loved ones on a near constant basis and no longer thinks that's a weird thing. That I don't really need to. I feel like I have nothing to say to that.
Spider-Man's day-to-day is basically the opening scene from Fury Road, is what I'm hearing.
Have you seen how many times, like, ghostly Uncle Ben has been drawn, like, looking down on him proudly? That's not, like, a metaphor. He is literally seeing the specter of Ben Parker in the air.
Now I'm just like, is he actually emotionally stable enough to handle a walk in the park, like, let alone this? I feel like I need to call 911 for this young spider.
Oh, Peter Parker's a house of cards, guys. I mean, just don't breathe on it too hard.
Talking about the idea that he can carry this, like, trauma, no problem, or that, like, this other random person's gonna give him the strength to carry on and stuff like that. I'm just thinking about, like, the time when he sees, like, Ned Leeds die. He doesn't get, like, a big reserve of strength. It's not his Aunt May, and he doesn't know him. Or, like, I guess there's the time when Aunt May gets shot and he goes on his, like, rampage through the city, and, like, he's, like, punching real hard, but he's not, like, focused. He's fighting messy, all that stuff. Like, even if he can tap into this strength, he still just becomes a freaking mess. And, like, the time when Ned Leeds dies, shortly after that, that's when he, like, punches that chick Charlie and kills her accidentally. And, like, so maybe he's gonna just punch Zaz in the face and kill him, and then have even more guilt, and then just be a mess.
In the storyline Grim Hunt, Peter, who is no joke suffering from swine flu and has had his spider sense magically suppressed, gets kidnapped by the Kravinoff family and buried alive. He then digs himself out of his own grave and hunts down the superpowered Kravinoffs one by one in their own mansion. There are points when he gets pushed far, Aunt May getting shot is one, and, you know, I'll admit he's not as quippy or as focused when that happens. I still think he is more than sufficiently motivated and powerful and skilled to take out the villains we're talking about here, even in that state.
Is the argument then that Batman's rogues gallery is just not that bad? Like, is that the argument that you're making, that compared to what Spider-Man goes through, that Batman should be better at what he does? Like, that Batman's not good enough?
It would help if Batman had super strength and clairvoyance, for sure. But, you know, he does what he can with what he's got.
Superpowers never hurt.
I mean, I feel like Peter Parker's its own case that, yes, they do.
Oh, you're assuming that Peter wouldn't be a mess without powers. He'd just be a different kind of mess.
Okay, decent rebuttals, Parker. We'll run them on the front page. Here's a nickel.
Working in press is hard these days.
We just have to cut him short right here, because, guys, I hate to tell you this, but my lightning round sense is tingling.
Oh, no!
Spider-Man and the Arkham inmates have been battling for hours now. For Spidey, this experience has been something like his own personal hell. But elsewhere in the asylum, some ways away from the fighting, that metaphor is about to be even more true for Jesse Kiefer. Look, Duma, he pleads, holding his hands out in a vague, helpless attempt at warding off the apparition before him. I already told you I was sorry. I never should have run that story all those years ago. I know I ruined your life and drove you crazy, but you have to believe me that I never meant to. I was just trying to do my job that day, Duma, and all I've tried to do since that day is move on, put the past behind me. I'm sorry, okay? Please? Duma Segwagwe doesn't display any outward sign of having heard, and the gun doesn't lower. Maybe Kiefer's pleas fell on deaf ears, or maybe just apathetic ones. It doesn't matter either way. Duma has been waiting years for this moment. To take revenge, yes, but also to reverse what happened once and for all. To change things. To get it all back. To turn everything around. This is Duma Segwagwe's chance, and Duma does not miss it. Duma suddenly moves the gun to Kiefer's left and fires, hitting nothing. Duma moves the gun to Kiefer's right and fires again hitting nothing. Kiefer looks from side to side, confused. Duma smiles. While one hand has been using the gun, the other has been inside Duma's pocket. Duma removes it, revealing the invention. Dr. Duma Segwagwe's greatest achievement, built from discarded scraps of nothing in an insane asylum. The opposite bomb. Kiefer cowers. Duma's finger is pressed tightly to the trigger of the bomb, as it has been since Duma first finished it, months ago, knowing that Kiefer couldn't stay away forever. Now, for the first time, Duma lets up on the pressure, releases the trigger. The opposite bomb does not go off. Which means, of course, that it does.
What?
A strange sight greets your character's eyes once the dust settles. The first thing you notice is that you're no longer trapped inside Arkham Asylum. You're outside, in a large open park, on a beautiful sunny day. The second thing you notice is Jesse Kiefer's body lying on the ground, a bullet through each eye. And the third thing you notice, yes, I just killed a patron, and the third thing you notice is that you're no longer you. For the purposes of this lightning round, Claire and Bob will be representing Batman, and Dan and Joshua will be representing Dr. Octopus, Electro, Rhino, Scorpion, the Vulture, and the Shocker.
Yes.
Now working together instead of against one another, of course, your characters put their heads together and try to figure this out. It goes faster after a friendly, ethically minded, and thoroughly well-adjusted scientist named Duma Segwagwe shows up to help out. Since things have been reversed as a result of the opposite bomb, and since the effects of the opposite bomb are presumably still lingering given no one knows the precise half-life of the concept of inversion, you reason that to change things back to the way they were, you'll need to recreate the conditions of your previous reality. But, the opposite. That means doing the opposite of a grueling, drawn-out, violent battle. What could that be? Wait, I've got an idea. Batman says, "It's a beautiful day. Let's have a picnic." Everybody loves the idea, but there's no time to lose. Batman runs in one direction, the Spider-Man villains in another. The picnic starts in 3 hours, and both sides are determined to make the best possible meal for the other side, because that's what friends do.
Aww.
However, this is still Smash Fiction, and both sides have managed to hold on to a competitive streak. Sometimes both sides of a coin show the same thing, if you know what I mean. Not only do you naturally want to present the best picnic meal because it makes you feel good, that slightly sticky layer of self-satisfaction that coats most acts of altruism, but you also sense that when the effects of the opposite bomb are reversed, the side that is picnicking the hardest might just come out with an edge when the fun and games turn back into punches and death traps. So it's vitally important that you tell me what dishes your character or characters contribute to the picnic, how they are aesthetically presented for the best effect, and how they will taste so good that your besties will delightedly gobble them down, leaving your side with the picnictory.
What?
Don't worry, Claire. I knew exactly what's happening and I'm good with it.
Team Arkham went first in the main round, so Team Spider-Man will go first in the lightning round.
Should we switch that because of the opposite bomb?
No, the opposite bomb is what switched it for the scenario. Like, normally we switch it manually, but we didn't this time. The opposite bomb switched that.
Okay, great.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. This is the stupidest lightning round response I think I've ever given. The picnic starts off with the Scorpion reaching into the grocery bag that he procured and bringing out just a bunch of raw cuts of meat. He has some steak, he has some chicken, he has some pork, he even has some random stuff. He has some peppers and some onions and some cheese and stuff. At first the Sinister Six and Batman are looking at him like, did you just bring raw meat? And he says, no, it's fine. And he uses his tail blade to really quick dice all of the ingredients up, goes over to the grill that's nearby, puts all of the cubed meat and vegetables on his tail blade, and then roasts them over the grill, and then serves shish kebabs to all of his new best friends, with the added benefit that the toxin on his tail blade provides a slight hallucinogen effect. Gets them mildly intoxicated. So, delicious and nutritious.
Dr. Octopus brought a delicious 8-layer dip. 1 layer for each murderous limb. And because Doc Ock cares about presentation, the dip will be served in a crystal punch bowl in the shape of an octopus, with the dip in the head and each arm holding a platter of squid ink tortilla chips.
Oh my god.
Next up is Electro, who produces a bag of potatoes. This is, again, kind of surprising to everyone. They're like, so you just got potatoes, not even French fries or mashed potatoes or anything? But see, what they don't realize is that potatoes are nature's batteries. And Electro is the master of electricity. Therefore, by the transitive property of comic book logic, Electro can control potatoes and is able to mentally reshape them into whatever form everyone wants. You want hash browns? You want French fries? You want potato salad? Electro has you covered with his brand new power set.
Also, that is far less ridiculous than the things that Magneto has done with magnetism.
I was literally about to say, you know what? If Magneto could control electricity, then sure.
Yeah. It's electromagnetism and potatoes, the two most ridiculous forces in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, we've realized it's all one force now. It's electro-potato magnetism.
The Vulture is bringing his grandma's recipe for fried chicken.
Oh my god, how old is that thing?
Exactly. The only thing Vulture is known for is being hella old. So his grandma must have an amazing down-home recipe, the likes of which no one has eaten since the mid-19th century.
Well, everyone's feeling pretty stuffed at this point, so the Rhino looks around at everyone, reaches up, unscrews the horn on top of his head, and then goes around and begins decanting vodka from it into everyone's red Solo cups.
Was this a thing he could always do?
I mean, I assume so. Let's be real. I think that he comes to the party, at least a couple shots in. That's the only way you could, convince me to run headfirst into a wall.
Now, I know we haven't heard from Batman yet, but we are nearing the end of the meal. And so for dessert, the Shocker, a man known for constantly vibrating, brings out a chocolate souffle. He did it just for the sheer challenge, and because he wouldn't, because of his costume, need oven mitts to get it out of the oven.
Oh, beautiful Team Spider-Man. I'm already hungry. Team Batman, feed me more.
First up is presentation. So the Sinister Six is all going to be sitting around at the picnic like, wait, where's Batman? Is Batman showing up? And then all of a sudden, a bunch of batarangs are going to fly in and land at their feet. And the Sinister Six is going to freak out and think they're getting attacked. But then they're going to see Batman's nowhere around. And then they realize that each batarang has a little bag attached to it. And they open them up and find that they've each been crafted an individualized meal made by Batman just for them.
All right, Electro. I want something spicy, so I'm seeing Batman as doing tomatoes injected with a sriracha vinaigrette. So that way, every time you bite down, it's this little pop of sharp spiciness. Also, a little sprinkle of batteries on top. Just for a little crunch,
Just a couple of 9 volts on there.
Oh, yeah. So that way you can lick it before. Oh.
For Dr. Octopus, Batman doesn't know anything about him apart from his name. So he just made some calamari and then gave them all little graduation caps.
Dan, you and I are on the same page.
Uh-huh.
For Rhino, it's just a whole watermelon in which a bottle of Everclear has been dumped.
Good, his horn's getting pretty low. He needs to refill.
Yeah.
For Scorpion, of course, a scorpion roll.
That's pretty good.
All right, for Vulture. Okay, Vulture, he's a complicated man. He's an old man, but he wants to be a young man. So normally it's brandied prune tart type things, because it does keep you regular. But he wants to have that young man vibe, so it's going to be Crown Royal prune tart. So, you really get that youthful, gross edge.
Also, to make it seem hip, Batman threw in a Go-Gurt, because that's what the kids are into.
That's what Batman thinks the kids are into.
No, he knows it. Even that murderous little bastard Damien likes Go-Gurt.
And finally, the Shocker. Batman looks at him and thinks that he looks like a big blanket, so he got him pigs in a blanket. And finally, the last touch that Batman will put on this meal is that everyone's like, oh man, yeah, that's such a good meal. This is a great time. All right, well, time to start cleaning up. And then they're going to say, oh wait, where's Batman? And he's gone. So they have to clean up without him.
Oh no!
Oh, he does have a butler, so that checks out. He has no idea that there's any cleanup after a meal.
Bourgeoisie motherfucker. All right, well, I have successfully bullshitted my way into making Spider-Man versus Arkham Asylum tonally similar to the Great British Bake Off, so my work here is done. Only it's not, because I still have to decide the winner. I'm gonna go get on that, and also maybe eat something, so talk amongst yourselves.
Well, thank you guys for indulging me in this Spider-Man match.
Oh, nice.
Joshua, this has been the white whale for our podcast throughout its entire run. What do we do with Spider-Man? We have to have a match with Spider-Man, and we could not come up with anyone good to pit him against.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of some obvious, I listened to you guys' 4-way pulp battle.
Oh yeah.
And I want to be like, the Spider versus Spider-Man. It'd be but that's over in 5 minutes because the Spider cannot keep up. And I love the Spider, but he can't keep up. And now there's no end of Spider people.
Dan, can you tell me about Spider-Man?
Spider-Man? Oh, you mean the version of Aunt May who got bitten by the radioactive spider? Yes, Bob. Please. Yes, I can. I mean, that's it. She's great. She saved both her husband, Ben Parker, and her nephew, Peter Parker, and swings around the city in a very ridiculous hat that's patterned like Spider-Man's outfit. And she's great.
Is she the only old lady superhero there is?
Madam Web?
Yeah, I don't know that Madam Web's a superhero. She's superhero adjacent.
She's
maybe.
Superhero adjacent. That's legit.
Aunt May also did temporarily become the Herald of Galactus for a bit.
That's true.
Wow.
What?
During which he was called Golden Oldie. Yeah, like we talk about all these demos that need to get filled in terms of like introducing new diverse characters. And yeah, man, old ladies are really underrepresented. There's a ton of old men superheroes out there.
Boy, you cannot walk through a comic book without tripping over an old fucking man.
Yeah.
My biggest surprise preparing for this match was I read a bunch of really old Spider-Man, and old Spider-Man is a delight. It's so good.
So great.
Claire said to me, yeah, he was a professional wrestler for a while. And I went, what was the past like?
I was really surprised that, very early on, J. Jonah Jameson just, springs forth fully formed, exactly the same as he is today, and just as hilarious and just as great. Some things take a while to find their footing, but J. Jonah Jameson just, right out the gate is 100% J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, and is, the best supporting character in comic books.
Pretty much, yeah.
What do you mean by supporting? He doesn't support.
If you have a petition to sign to give JJJ his own solo series, I will sign it and also put a bunch of fake signatures on there.
I think Joshua means that, Jameson isn't supportive of the main character.
And
that's true.
He's like a secondary antagonist.
Wait, does he not? Has he never had his own series? Because I want that story. I want to hear him grapple with how hard it is that the print medium is, moving to digital.
What we need is a team-up series with JJJ and Aunt May as the main characters.
Yeah.
The Golden Age Red Tornado is an old lady superhero.
The one who dressed like Four Brush Man.
Four Brush Man dressed like her. She was around before the war.
Yeah, you're right.
Who's Four Brush Man?
Oh, God.
We don't have time to get into Four Brush Man.
All right.
Wikipedia will do you better
All right, fine.
than Dan getting all wound up about it, because he will. I can tell by hearing his reaction.
It's true.
All right. Well, I've returned to cast my judgment. I remember thinking when we entered into this match, God, is this a little bit harsh on old Spidey here? I don't know, should we give him something? Because there's a bunch of Batman villains in this prison with him. And so I'm very surprised with, unfortunately, Team Arkham, what I perceive as how kind of one-sided this one was. Team Spider-Man is the winner.
Yes!
I just thought you guys did a really great job of arguing your points and realizing that that really what you needed to prove was that Spider-Man was at least as good as Batman. I think you guys really the point where you started to pull away from me in this one was in Team Arkham's rebuttal section. Every time Team Arkham made a point, not only did you guys turn it away, but you were basically also, even if that's true, it doesn't matter, here's this other way we'll win. And I don't want to imply that Team Arkham didn't do a wonderful job, because you guys absolutely did.
We did our best.
You did a fantastic job, and I really, when you guys came out of the gate, I was like, oh shit. But I think Team Spider-Man really just, nailed a number of really key points. I have to give some props to Dan for the coup de grace with Spider-Man digging out of his own grave while he had the swine flu.
Yeah.
I will say, I prepared harder for this than any match we have ever done.
Oh, wow.
Earlier tonight, I was pacing around the kitchen saying, I'm not going to be upset if Spider-Man loses. I'm not. I'm just not. I'm not. And I knew it was a lie. Team Arkham did, in fact, put up a tremendous fight, particularly in your guys' openers. I didn't even think of some of the points you guys brought up. I was really flying by the seat of my pants during rebuttals, so...
Much like Spider-Man, you got in over your head and were flying by the seat of your pants, but you somehow made it through.
I was
That's right.
I was going very method with this one. But thanks to Joshua for being my partner on this, man.
Yeah,
You were great.
it's lovely to have him on the show.
It was my pleasure. I'm really glad to have been a part of it. I feel like if there's a link in the chain that I brought here to this argument, it was the moment when I went, wait a minute, these are the only two guys who have any good villains. Surely they're similar.
Yeah, that was really good. That was a really good line of argument to take.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joshua, for coming on the show. We really appreciate you being here. It is an honor and a privilege.
And you're a delight.
Well, thank you. I spend a lot of time telling people that I'm delightful.
Aw.
And
I'll tell them.
I'm not sure that they believe me, so it's nice to hear.
Haha, Spider Judo takes it.
Yeah, buddy.
A lot of arms. Very good at grapples. Anyway, time for the kid thanks. Over to Twitter. Thank you to Vander Turner, FatBlunt69.
Fast Blunt 69. Hold on, I might have to do that one a little bit more epic, because I'm not sure,
That's true.
I don't know when I'm going to get to do this again, so,
Wind it up. Take a big old toke.
Fat Blunt 69!
Nice.
Ow!
M. Bond, CJ, Florian, Robert Ramsey, Cool Down Now, Matias Tautimez, Devin Toohey, The Phantom Heights Podcast, and Matthew Seek. Lord Jesus, Matt, I never remember how to pronounce
Seek is how you pronounce his last name.
Oh, that's right, because Seek and Destroy is his Twitter handle. There, now you all know. Thank you to Milo, Jeff Frick Present, Sid Rabbit, Icon Jade, Earth Mofo, As If YDK, Dr. Jake Einstein, A Thick Bill Past 5 p.m. on a Friday, very spooky, and a shoe-resistant spider, not spooky, best thing ever. I'm siding with the spiders on this one.
All right. Line in the sand, drawn.
Over to Tumbles. Thank you to Ink the Cryptid, Not Very Bright Raven, Changing Shades, Sid Rabbit Blog, and once again, Fatblunt69. And on Facebook, thank you to Jeff Polier, Tom Groh, Daniel Kidder, and Adam Mayo.
And pour one out for our patron, Jesse Kiefer, former intrepid reporter for the Daily Bugle, currently dead at the hands of our other patron, Duma Sigwagwe, the evil scientist supervillain. Miles is a living monster who doesn't want nice things for our patrons, but certainly writes them into epic storylines, which is part of what happens if you become a patron of ours over at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast.
I just gotta say, either the effects of the opposite bomb are reversed, and things work out okay for Jesse, or they're not, and things work out okay for Duma. I don't know which one actually happened, but I didn't kill or horribly mentally scar both of them. All right?
That is the bar, apparently.
Yep.
That's right.
Pretty good. All right, well, never mind. Miles is our greatest hero. I'm sure your candidacy for sainthood is in the mail. But another thing that you get, aside from being in our storylines, our $10 patrons get to dictate matches for us, such as what Johnny Keelman did. He dictated a series of matches to us. One of them was a match involving Spider-Man, and boy, did we put our heads together to come up with one that we thought would be good. So I'm very happy that we got dictated this one. It's been a treat for me, and hopefully a treat for everyone else as well. So thank you to all of our patrons for the support you show us.
Yeah.
And thanks also to Joshua for coming on, being an amazing partner and a truly excellent advocate. Joshua, please do our listeners a favor and tell them all about where they can find your stuff.
Well, absolutely. You mentioned at the top of the show, I'm both an author and a podcaster. I have written several genre novels and a bunch of short stories and stuff like that, which you can find most of at joshuaunruh.com, JOSHUAUNRUH. And the things that you can't find there are mostly done with my co-writer, Dan Swenson, who is a fantastic fantasy writer, and we're working on an ongoing Mystery Man serialized piece of fiction that you can find at EmpireCityAdventures.com. And then I also do podcasts, obviously, many of them about superheroes. You can find all of those at pulpdiction.biz. That's diction with a D.biz.
And I have to say, I highly recommend every single one of Joshua's podcasts. I listen to all of them, and they are all amazing. I do want to say, everyone, as you probably know by now, Miles is verily on the verge of becoming a father. And this represents the last match that he's going to be on before he goes on paternity leave. So this is our fond farewell to our beloved co-host, Miles Schneiderman.
Yeah.
Miles, of course, will still be appearing on League. You want to be back for the Smash Bash as well, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to be back for the third Smash Bash.
Yeah.
And I'll be on League, obviously. But aside from that, I appreciate all y'all's understanding in terms of needing to do baby-related things.
But yeah, man, thanks for all you've done for the show. You've been the very engine that keeps us going week to week. And it's really been appreciated.
Well, I appreciate you, and thank you for that. I really appreciate that, and it's been an absolute pleasure working on this show for fucking 4.5 years, or however long we've been doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I won't say I've loved every minute of it, but I've loved enough of it that the overall experience was positive.
Oh, we love you too, Miles.
The most shining recommendation Miles can give to anything.
That's the purest compliment that Miles can give. Miles, your honesty and other qualities will be missed.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And thank you to Dan and Bob for letting me ease the editing burden onto you over the past several months, and now we'll be taking it on for the remainder of the show, and I really appreciate that. And just, you guys are awesome. I love you, and I look forward to being back on League.
Oh, that's all right. I just look forward to hearing that you've named your child after me. So, that'll be nice.
That ain't gonna happen. We've already chosen the name.
Are you
unfortunately,
debuting the name now?
Should I?
I mean,
No,
it's up to
don't
you.
do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Why is that your advice, Joshua?
Somebody will fuck it up. Somebody will show up and go, oh, I know. You mean like this dictator from 100 years ago or whatever, or tell you about their ex-boyfriend or girlfriend and will ruin the name for you. You keep it under wraps until it's attached to that child. Trust me.
That is totally fair. I think that's good advice. Well, thank you guys again. I appreciate that send-off, and I thank everybody for listening all these years and for supporting us.
And what a bunch of bullshit for you to go out on.
What a bunch of bullshit it was. And also, I'm just going to say this once. If you want to keep listening to me yell about stuff, go listen to The Next Wrestling Fan. That's the NXT Wrestling Fan, which is the bi-weekly podcast that, of course, I host with Megan Bob about getting her into pro wrestling via NXT. So if you like wrestling, or more importantly, if you don't, and you think you might, and you'd like to try it, our show hopefully represents a very good entry point for you. So that is where I will be until I'm back doing other things. Thank you for listening to this episode of Smash Fiction. Next week, it's the final episode of Collaboratory.
Smash Fiction is produced by Dan Mulcairn, with logo design by Claire Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin McLeod of the Clan McLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Hitman.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going, and we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
I bet Josh is catchier.
Then Batman?
Yeah, than Batman.
Yeah, but it's no good for the secret identity.
Oh, you know what? That's why he didn't go with it.
Yeah, what if he went around calling himself Bat Bruce all the time? Like, he'd be
Well, I
dead
just
today.
assumed, like, maybe Josh is his middle name.
You know, I do feel like Bat Josh is a pretty good secret identity for Bruce Wayne.
That's true. That's a really good point.
Very
That,
fair.
I feel like throws people off the trail even more. They're like, we gotta find this Josh guy.
Yeah.
To be fair, if people haven't figured out that Bruce Wayne is Batman yet, I don't really think there's any name he could come up with that would help them out. He could just be like, I am Bruce Wayne, the superhero.
Yep.
Okay, since they didn't mention Zaz, I'm not either.
Okay, sounds good.
You guys can have Zaz, that's fine.
I completely ignored him, so...
He's a guy with a knife, it's whatever.
The entirety of my notes are eye roll emoji.
All right.
I'm glad we all collectively agreed that Zaz doesn't matter.